Welcome, everyone. I call the December 7th, 2021 regular City Council meeting to order. I now invite you to recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Please unmute your microphone and turn off your video while we display the banner. I'll give everyone a moment to do that. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
to the
the
flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the republic
for which it
stands
one nation,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our remote meeting format. Proclamation 20-28 regarding open public meetings is still in effect. Therefore, this meeting will be held entirely remotely. Public comment will be allowed both in writing or verbally. Sign-up sheets were provided by the city clerk's office via link from the agenda. At this point, we'll take a moment to take roll call of the council members by position number. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name.
Deputy Mayor Zorns,
here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Here.
Councilmember McNeil,
Here.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Councilmember Dorr,
Here.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. So our first item is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Councilmember McNeil?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to add an item to the agenda after public comment tonight to discuss adding criteria in our protocol manual that guides council in the process of electing the mayor and deputy mayor.
Let me. So you said after visitor comment?
Yes, if that would be okay, Mayor.
Deputy City Attorney, do we need approval by the majority of council to add an item?
Yes,
We
Mayor.
just,
My understanding would be the majority of council. It's the council's meeting. They want to add something to the agenda. A majority vote will be required.
so do we need a second to, or just a call for the vote?
I think a call for a vote would just be sufficient.
All right, City Clerk, if you would like to. So I'll ask, so Councilmember McNeil is asking for an agenda item to discuss requirements for the selection of mayor. If I'm capturing that correctly.
Yeah, mayor and deputy mayor, correct, yes.
All right. Thank you. So that'll be the item that we'll have the city clerk
Okay.
go through.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
No.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
No.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 5-2 with Councilmember Thompson and Councilmember Dorr in the negative.
All right. So we'll get to that after our visitor comment. Any other changes to the agenda? All right. On to our presentation. So we have public engagement opportunities. So we have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. The City of Bothell is now accepting applications for the Bothell's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Members of the public are encouraged to apply to help make our community equitable and accessible for all. Recruitment remains open through January 10th. Community members can learn more by visiting bothellwa.gov/DEI committee. And then we have the Ways to Give Back. 'Tis the season for the season of giving. Community members can visit bothellwa.gov /ways to give for a complete list of ways that they can make a meaningful difference in Bothell this holiday season and beyond. And then we have our Winter Porch Light Parade. So this December, the community is invited to help transform Bothell into a winter wonderland of lights. Residents are encouraged to decorate their porches, patios, yards, and windows to bring joy to the family, friends, and neighbors. So let's shine bright Bothell and learn more at bothellwa.gov /porch light parade. All right, next item we have is the interim city manager report, and I'll turn it over to our interim city manager, Erin Lenhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to have a quick conversation with you this evening about COVID and in-person city council meetings. So the plan at this point is to remain in the virtual environment through the end of this year. But I wanted to speak with you or get your sense of if there's a majority of you who are interested in holding in-person meetings starting on January 4th, or if you would rather wait and wait until February. The staff intends to bring the council protocol manual to you for review and discussion on the 11th and 18th of January, because as you may recall, there's a reference to attending by speakerphone, which is clunky at best when we now have a better option than speakerphone for attending council meetings if you're not here in person. So anyway, the idea would be to have council have a conversation to see how you feel. If you want to start meeting in January, we could also waive that section for those who don't feel safe meeting in person yet. And I would ask that we not go the hybrid route unless there's a majority of council who do want to be here in person, since I think it will be a little awkward having more people on the video screen than we have here in person in that situation. So I will open the floor to you all and let the mayor run this conversation as he typically would, if you wouldn't mind.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
I'm just going to do a stream of consciousness, and then I just hope everybody else steps in and gives me their thoughts. Thinking out loud, I would love to be meeting in person because I think our immune systems are healthier when we have controlled exposure to the flora and fauna around us. That said, this is the middle of the cold and flu season, and I think we need to err on the side of caution and start getting our immune systems exposed again when the sun's out more and we got more vitamin D and we know what's happening with COVID and all its variants. So my vote is continue remote. I don't know how you're going to handle the swearing in on January 4th if you want to, do one in person and then the rest hybrid. And then the other thing, which I thought, I think Mason was also at this AWC last night. They did last weekend, they did a survey, and easily, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, easily half of the cities are still meeting remotely. So it's, and then the next chunk down from there is hybrid. So it seems like the cities around us are being very cautious, but those are my gut reactions on it.
Councilmember Agnew.
Although I'd love to meet in person, I think we still need to abide by the science that is coming our way. So I think all of us would love in-person meetings right now, but I don't think we can actually get there yet. So that's my feeling.
Councilmember Thompson.
I agree with Councilmember Zorns and Agnew, or Council members Zorns and Agnew. There's a new variant on the horizon that we don't know what's going to happen, and we'll probably know a little bit more by January, but it doesn't seem to me to be the best time to be making the decision with that on the horizon. And also, like, I still have a son that is not eligible to get vaccinated yet. And I'm not super excited about potentially exposing him to something because we are doing in-person council meetings. Once he is able to be vaccinated, my feelings will probably change, because I love to know a little bit more about what it's like to do in-person council meetings. Most of my career has been here doing this so far. I'm looking forward to when that day comes, and I don't think it's now.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would ask you to bring this back up again after the new council members are brought forward in January. By then, you might see things a little differently, but I think it would be more their choice than ours.
Councilmember Dewar.
I agree with my fellow council members. I think for now, with caution, we should be meeting remotely until we know more. I saw an article today that said Omicron actually has a higher incidence of hospitalization. So the risks seem to outweigh the benefits.
Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would agree as well. I think we all want to get back in person so we can humanize one another and have those discussions from the dais. But I think safety comes first and foremost for our community. Thank you.
Sounds like a pretty common opinion there, and I would agree with everyone that the information is just very dynamic right now, and January would hopefully be a better time to make changes. Hopefully we have more information at that time. So yeah, looks like continue as is for December.
And January, sounds like. Excellent. Thank you all so much. I appreciate the conversation. And City Clerk, can you just confirm that we have a plan for doing the swearing in remotely?
Yes, we do. I've contacted the judge, and she's going to join us remotely, and she'll have the oath of office for the council members elect and re-elected, and she'll read that remotely for each of you. And so we'll just carry on remotely.
Perfect. Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that item up. It's an excellent point. Well, thank you all for the conversation. Please carry on.
All right. On to council committee reports. Does anyone have a report they'd like to make? All right. Seeing none, we can move on to visitor comments. And I don't believe we had anyone that signed up.
We did not, Mayor Olson. However, if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function, and we will panel you in for 3 minutes. Give it a minute to make sure that there's nobody in there. I'm not seeing anybody, Mayor Olson.
All right. On to our added agenda item. So Councilmember McNeil, I believe you wanted to bring up a discussion on just the selection of the mayor and deputy mayor and how it's done and if there's any requirements.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. Typically, I speak from the heart at council meetings and usually in public, but tonight I feel compelled to put my words together in a statement. One of probably the first time I've actually put together a statement to read during council. I typically, again, just speak from the heart, but tonight I thought my words were vitally important for our community. And so I wanted to put something together to talk about how we move into the future. And so there's been a series of personal and harmful events that have been impacted me and council members elect and led me to address council today as colleagues, peers, as you're concerned, neighbor and friend. For the past 6 years, like you, many of you, I've sacrificed my time to service all of the community of Bothell. And with gratitude and humility, I want to also share it has been my desire to represent those lived experiences, perspectives, and opinions of many of our community who don't often find themselves reflected by those holding leadership roles in city government, on our city boards, commissions, and or even on city council. As a lifelong resident of Bothell, an African-American, the only African-American on city council, I've done my best to offer insights that would represent more diversity in the decision-making bodies of the city of Bothell. My goal is to bring a unique perspective that may offer help or hope, and I'm sure that we all share a common desire to operate in a manner that is open, transparent, and accountable. Are we always successful in offering visibility? We are not. We should always work to share with our community what challenges we face and the result solutions we found to resolve those issues. If we're truly going to be and represent the will of the people of Bothell, we have to be willing to share every aspect of our deliberations and solutions. Moving forward, it is my hope as a governing body, we will do all that we can to both earn and maintain the trust of the community in all that we do. That will happen when we demonstrate open, honest, and transparent leadership on behalf of the Bothell community. I have asked that we include this item to our meeting agenda with the intent that council might approve a set of criteria for selecting a mayor and deputy mayor to be added to the council protocol manual, one that incorporates best practices that further diversity, equity, inclusion into our process. Our goal should be one of openness, transparency, and accountability so that moving forward, the process of selecting a mayor should always be results in choosing someone who has the requisite skills and experiences to serve the needs of the community as a whole. A couple of the options that I'd offer are following criteria. A starting point for consideration would be years experience on council, experience chairing council or regional meetings, experience and strong connections working with other elected officials, local governments around the region, involvement representing Bothell on regional committees and outcomes that have benefited Bothell from the nominee being actively involved in, experience and involvement in community groups and efforts that impact Bothell, measurable outcomes of the community groups while involved in those community groups, and DEI, considerations of equitable inclusion, marginalized members of the community whose voices are often not represented in city Bothell leadership roles. Nominations for mayor and deputy mayor and council comments while deliberating nominations should highlight these criteria and how the nominee being put forward is qualified. Moving forward, it is my hope that as a governing body, we do all that we can to both earn and maintain the trust of the community in all that we do. That will happen when we demonstrate open, honest, transparent leadership on behalf of Bothell. The city of Bothell has expressed sentiments would have us believe that it intentionally is working to be more inclusive and welcoming of racial minority members of the LGBTQIA plus community, women, and all of those who do not enjoy privilege in our communities. As both individuals and a governing body, we often say the right thing, but today and moving forward, we have the opportunity to do the right thing on behalf of our community. We should always work to provide help and service to the people who live, work, and visit our city, and hope to many people of color who feel they are not often invisible and not heard by Bothell leaders. It is this that changes, like one being proposed today, that should represent our collective future and not our past. Let us establish an open and fair process that would ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to serve in every way possible to meet the unique needs of an increasingly diverse and global community.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
I haven't really had a chance to formulate my thoughts on this and be as articulate. You do speak to a problem of it being rushed, the first meeting in January, and do all the new and sitting council members get a chance to have all their information. And I'm sitting here thinking, how can we hit the ground running to get business done? I think checking boxes of experience is really important. I'm not sure how we would, do we put that in a protocol manual? Maybe we do. Or maybe part of the process is we don't have that in the protocol manual, simply because sometimes there's big dynamic changes on a new council that's sworn in on January. But I think that just off the top of my head, and you guys dissect this, is that our last meeting in December maybe ought to be the time where we bring, I sat in on a mayor's meeting that Mayor Olson chaired last month, maybe, and the recommendation was that new council members actually come in and sit in and are part of a council session so they understand how the dynamics and the manners and how people work together. And maybe as a council, maybe we want to start doing that. The council members elect come in on our last meeting, they sit in and watch how it's done, and then we have that discussion of what boxes are checked, and people who would like to be mayor can state their case, and then people can think about it. So January, the 1st of January, we can hit the ground running and everybody can make a very informed choice. So you guys tell me where the holes are in that logic.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
So let me ask this. Does currently the protocol manual have any kind of guidance as to who serves or who's elected as mayor, deputy mayor? Is there anything currently in the protocol manual?
Councilmember McAuliffe, I'll answer that if it would be helpful.
Please.
To my knowledge, there's not. It simply talks about when the mayor and the deputy mayor should be appointed, and that'll be the first meeting in January. Otherwise, it does not include any qualifications, nor does state law, except for the person being a sitting council member.
And could you help me? Are you familiar with any cities that kind of have a stronger language in their protocol manual? Is there some that do have some requirements or criteria?
Not to my knowledge, Councilmember McAuliffe, although I don't know for certain on all the different jurisdictions. I do know it's a majority of council who can update the protocol manual, and it certainly could be a protocol majority of council that could change it at some other point.
Thank you.
Councilmember Agnew.
Excuse me, very well spoken, my friend. I like Jean's idea of bringing in all the council members that are going to be replacing us on our last council meeting and starting the dialogue for who's going to be mayor, who's going to be deputy mayor, etc. I like that. I think we need to implement more of that. In fact, when we had our vote today about whether we wanted to continue with our virtual city council meetings, I contacted the gentleman that's replacing me and got his information, and he and I agreed, and that's the information I relayed. I think they need to be brought in a little bit. There's no question about that. But I like what you said. I think there's a lot of very good merit to it.
Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's inappropriate to change the protocol manual before new council members come on board. We're talking about honoring the fact that they'll be coming on board, and I think to change the protocol manual right before they come on board is inappropriate. I'm all for bringing them on early to be able to participate and get to know people better, but I think to set criteria is very dangerous road. I don't think it's appropriate to set criteria. The voting of mayor and deputy mayor is largely a political decision, whether we want it to be or not. That's kind of the way it is, and I think this is a political move, frankly, and I think it's completely inappropriate. So that's where I stand.
Councilmember Agnew.
I'm not sure where this is totally inappropriate. I think that in most cases, criteria is good. I mean, it gives you a basis. I think there should be some criteria or some way to acknowledge somebody that's done a very good job for a long time and represented the city and is continuing to represent the city, and to call it a political ploy, I'm offended by that.
Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's it's my hope that we'll make a decision today to bring this back in another meeting to allow an open and transparent, fair and equitable conversation around who's going to be the mayor and deputy mayor, the next mayor and deputy mayor of the city of Bothell. We often talk about what the community is looking for in DEI and the approach that we want to take at looking at things through a different lens. And this is no different. This is a very important decision on who's going to be the next mayor and deputy mayor of the city of Bothell. And to me, if we're going to walk the walk, if we're going to talk the talk, we need to walk the walk. And the bottom line is that this is only a mere opportunity for us to do what we've been talking about doing and have an open conversation in front of our community about qualifications. Quite frankly, it's just talking about who we are, who's elected, who's on council, and what we've been doing, and nothing more. I mean, the outcome is going to be the outcome. It is the will and the decision of the council. But I'm hopeful that we will bring this back in our next meeting and have a discussion around what we want to discuss as far as criteria, or allowing whoever the nominees are to be able to speak to themselves being nominated. That is the point. That's what I'm trying to bring up here tonight, is opportunity. And as far as this council making a decision today, this council is making a decision today. If it's one of the last decisions they make, it's this decision moving us forward into where we can actually be balanced, and the new council can come in on the same morals and principles of equity and diversity and inclusion for all of our community. And it doesn't just go for our community, it goes for us on the dais as well.
Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy City Attorney Sepler, is there anything in the protocol manual that seeks to speak to the actual vote a council member would take on a particular issue?
In terms of, there is
criteria for decision making, kind of like what we're talking about today. And I don't know if Councilmember McNeil is suggesting that this is like some sort of point system that binds the new council, or that we're just saying, hey, these are our values in here. But is there anything in the council member or in the protocol manual right now that seeks to set criteria by which council members vote by?
The only thing that could come to mind is the discussion of conflict of interest. But besides that, I'm not aware of specific criteria governing council decision making.
Got it. Is how an individual council member votes on a particular issue protocol?
Not aware of a definition that would define to include that action.
Is it, if we are going to include in our protocol manual things that are not protocol, do we run the risk of putting the city in any kind of a legally precarious situation? And is that something we're actually able to do?
So to answer that question, the protocol manual, the purpose is to help the council as a body run its meetings and conduct its business. It's written by a majority of the council. Certainly it can't disenfranchise a member of the council. It can't recall them. It can't remove them from office. Those are all inherent rights for that council member under state law and why they were elected. In terms of governing how business is conducted, that's the main role of the rules of procedure. But again, it's the protocol manual is adopted by a majority of council.
So it governs how business is conducted. It's not meant to govern what decisions get made.
I think that's a fair way of categorizing it.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think my questions kind of led to my conclusion is this isn't protocol. And if this council wants to seek to, I won't say bind the new council, but seeks to make suggestions to the new council in terms of the criteria that council should use to make their decisions, I don't feel the protocol manual is the place to do that. And I think we just heard it from our deputy city attorney that that's not what it's for. And if we can't bind the vote of a council member, I just don't understand why we would put it in the protocol manual. I mean, if this council wants to make a statement that they say, we hope that the new council makes these decisions by these certain criteria. I mean, this council is certainly welcome to do so. And that's something we could vote on. I just don't understand why we would put something that is not protocol in the protocol manual. And also voting on the next council's first decision a few weeks before they take office, I don't really want to be a part of that. I think that's a pretty bad look. So I'm not in favor of this. I'm in favor of this council respecting the new council and the decisions they make.
Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so Deputy City Attorney, kind of hearing the statement that I made and the request to have criteria put in, is there a more appropriate way to state that to ensure that we have an opportunity as a council, whether it be current or new, to have a discussion around qualifications and or experience without stating or, as Councilmember Thompson alluded to, binding a council member's vote. To be clear, what I'm looking for is to be able to have a discussion, open and transparent, fair discussion about qualifications, about nominees. And I would include the new council may have nominations they want to make, and they may want to have a conversation on why they nominated that person and talk about the qualifications. And so what my hope is to ensure that we have language in our protocol manual that allows that opportunity to happen, the same as we would with any other decision or DEI decision that we're trying to make as a city.
So Councilmember McNeil, to answer the question, at a minimum right now, as written in the protocol manual and under state law, there will be an open public meeting at the first meeting of the year where council will discuss the nomination for mayor and also the nominations for deputy mayor. And that will be at an open public meeting. It'll be the same type of discussion that council could have on any other item in terms of individual council members having an opportunity to speak or opportunities to nominate. The protocol manual talks about a procedure of balloting that the city clerk will perform in order for the nominee to, or the mayor to be selected at the start of that meeting. So in terms of a procedure and an opportunity for a discussion that will occur at the start of the year in January. In terms of being able to add anything to the protocol manual talking about certainly that procedure could be more elaborate if the council desired. It could have different steps. What's the direction under state law is that it occurs at the beginning of the year. In terms of specific qualifications, at the end of the day, that is for a majority of council to determine whether or not someone is qualified. As state law would leave it, that's determined kind of by inference from whether 4 people vote for that nominee. To the extent that there needs to be criteria to support that, 4 members of council could put that in the protocol manual. 4 members of council could change that in the protocol manual, or waive it depending on the specific nominee at issue. I believe I've touched on the different points of your question there. Is there anything more I can elaborate on for you?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And hearing you state that that conversation can take place, and that those qualifications can come up in that conversation. We as the council can actually bring those individual qualifications up in that meeting, and therefore they can be spoken to at that time. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would say, to me, it would be wonderful if we could have an opportunity to have the council member elects part of a meeting on December 14th to have that discussion with them prior to that meeting as well.
Councilmember Dewar. You're on mute.
In prior meetings, when discussing mayor and deputy mayor, qualifications have come up. People always have the right to say why they're nominating and why they're voting. So this is nothing different. Nothing has changed with this line of questioning. It's effectively the same as what we've always done.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
The unmute button is being mischievous all over the place. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think as a council, we ought to start thinking about what that last meeting is before a new council comes into place. We had that, mayor's meeting that created a great germ of an idea to have new council members that may have. I think the question, you can probably recall better than I can. I think it was, how do you mitigate potentially divisive members of council who are new to council and new to the system of how we work. And someone said, bring them on board and start having that conversation with the existing city council, and they can make their own notes on what works and what doesn't work. And so I think we really ought to think about, and I think that when I have watched and also then been a part of new mayor and deputy mayor, it comes on so fast. There's so much information, and you're coming with your own lens that you're looking at, that having a time to chew and ruminate on what kind of decision you want to make. I think there's some merit to, do we want to start changing what that last meeting in December looks like, bringing new members on, letting them sit at the table with us and have this conversation, and then break, and then come back and, make that decision when everybody's sworn in. So I would support changing up the dynamics, creating a new tradition for Bothell on city council with the dais. I would support that.
And I'll just take a minute and say a few words, weigh in on some of this. There's definitely points all over that I'm agreeing with. I think this is a fuzzy subject. The meeting that Deputy Mayor Zorns was talking about, from it, I got out of that was, it was almost a little bit of a team building, a transition. I think, some of the mayors that spoke, it was more of almost a half-day working session, collaborative, of getting the new council members involved to, I guess, have a little bit of a culture transfer from the previous council to the new council. Perhaps not during an actual meeting, but during a separate working session. Because yeah, I do think it is good to pass on the culture, but as we talk about seeing the council through different lenses, some people might want a change, and as Councilmember Dewar said, this is definitely a political discussion. But as we've gone through looking at the qualifications of city managers, that's brought me, front of mind what we're looking for in a person that would run the organization, be the leader of the staff. And I think many of those qualities, traits are very much what we would look for in a mayor as well, since they're running the meetings, and, just the respectfulness, the professionalism, the empathy. I think those are three that really shone strongly during the city manager recruitment. And I think those are some traits that are, beneficial to have for a city manager. I mean, a mayor, a deputy mayor. So yeah, I think the quickness of that first meeting on how it happens, it does come quick and fast, and sometimes information and people that put their names forward come as a bit of surprise probably to some. So it's an interesting proposition to potentially start that discussion earlier than the first meeting, as the actual appointment, the election of the mayor and deputy mayor happens then, but perhaps stretching it out. But the actual mechanics of that, I think, would need a little further discussion, investigation on how that could work, since we're dealing with council member elects and sitting council at the same time. So Councilmember McAuliffe, I saw your card up last.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not sure if it belongs in the protocol manual, but I do think it's important for this council, this next council, to consider the qualifications of a council member to become mayor or deputy mayor. So if they have years of experience, if they have served in regional committees, if they have completed DEI training and also are a student ready to serve, those things should be important. And I don't know how you do that other than when you nominate someone to speak about that, but I think it's critically important. If someone has served over years and have done regional meetings and have also qualified for the work that they've done, appreciated or respected for the work they've done, I think that's really important in electing a mayor and a deputy mayor. So I'm sorry that I don't know how to do it unless I put it in the protocol manual, but I hope that that will be considered when each person is nominated and then selected.
Councilmember McNeil.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we bring this topic back for discussion at our next council meeting, and have an opportunity to discuss further what we as a council now and in the future are looking at for qualifications for the mayor and deputy mayor. And I'd like to include the council member elects in that conversation.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember McNeil to bring back a agenda item. And to discuss the qualifications of the electing the mayor and the deputy mayor, and a second by Councilmember Agnew. Any discussion? Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for allowing the open and transparent conversation on this important decision that we'll be making in this next year. I really hope that this council will understand the intent of this motion is to ensure that we talk openly and transparently with our community, and that we allow the newly electeds an opportunity to be part of that conversation and to be sitting at the table, so that we can ensure that we have at least looked at all of the qualifications of all nominees, regardless of the outcome. I think we owe it to the community to at least look at everybody's qualifications and ensure that we are making the best decision on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Thompson. Unmute.
Sorry, new headset. It does funny things. I'm a little bit unsure as to how we would vet nominees, how this council would vet nominees for mayor or deputy mayor when nominations can't happen until a new council comes forward. I guess it just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. I mean, one of the biggest jobs of a council is selecting a mayor and a deputy mayor, and we have 3 people that came on board that ran for that office, and I think they should be the ones, and the new council should be the people that decide these things. And I mean, how do we talk about nominees when we, by the rules that we have in front of us, can't have nominees yet?
All right. Oh, Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Can I have a point of clarification? Are we talking about nominees or what we're looking for in nominees?
I believe we're looking at a motion to have an agenda item for discussion on the making I guess Deputy City Attorney Sepler, what term would you, I guess?
I would say it's a return for a conversation on what qualifications make a good mayor.
Yep. So I think, does that clarify things for you, Deputy Mayor Zorns?
Well, sorry about that. If we're talking about what the qualifications are and leaving the people out of it, I'm great having a conversation before the close of 2021.
Councilmember Agnew.
The one thing I've seen in this city over the past 12 years is growth. And we have to grow as a council. I do not see any opposing sides or why we wouldn't want to have recommendations for the mayor. Most of us worked in civilian lives, and all of us, if we got promoted, there were steps we had to take to get promoted. Were those the qualifications that we needed? Yeah, they were. You know, call them qualifications, call them really nice to do, whatever you want to call them. But I think as a city, we need to, as someone so eloquently put it, from my time, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
Councilmember Dewar.
I think this entire conversation is completely inappropriate. I think the only qualification is if the person who is voted mayor has the votes of the council. This is not a job that has criteria per se. I think this is one council member trying to make a play to make his case, and I think it's completely inappropriate and a waste of this current council's time, and it should be the purview of the next council. And I don't think we should be hamstringing them with what they choose to do.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
No.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
No.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 5-2 with council members Thompson and Dorr in the negative.
All right, on to our consent agenda. Councilmember Agnew.
Since nothing has been pulled, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Councilmember Dewar.
Second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Councilmember Agnew to approve the consent agenda as presented, with the second by Councilmember Dewar. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. So on to our next couple of items. We have a couple public hearings. So we have AB 21-186, a public hearing regarding amendments to Title 21 for impact fees. So I'll now open the public meeting. So I'll open the public hearing, and I'll call on our Community Development Director, Michael Cotterman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. So this item, sorry, I need to double check the agenda. I believe I'm here for the first public hearing on Title 21 impact fees. Thank you. Sort of lost my place when I was walking down the virtual aisle. So this evening we have, there are actually three main items that are part of this particular item on your agenda, and we are starting on page 203 of the packet. The first item is an update of the school impact fee rates. And this is to reflect the new rates that are in the capital facilities plan adopted by the North Shore School District back in June of this year. The other two items have to do with some amendments to the code. The first one is to allow the city to collect those fees on behalf of the district. Currently, those fees are collected by the district itself. This is an item that's come before the council before. It's been a docket item for the last couple of years. So we're getting one of our docket items checked off. And then the third is we were going through the process of amending the code for the administrative purposes. We also identified some areas where we have some ambiguity in the code. We've been following certain practices, but we decided to make some cleanup on the code as well to address those ambiguities. Addressing the calculation of credits and also some procedures that we have in there. So the first item that we're going to talk about this evening, we have representatives from the North Shore School District. We have Dree Ralph, who's the Executive Director of Capital Programs, or excuse me, Capital Projects and Operations. Sorry about that, Dree.
No worries.
Can't read my own writing. We have John Mark, who's the Director of Facilities Planning. And we also have Denise Stiffarm, who is the outside legal counsel for the school district. So they'll be doing a brief presentation about the change in the impact fee amounts, the levels. And then Robbie Sepler, the deputy city attorney, will talk about the other code amendments related to the Title 21 amendments that we have before you this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Dree.
Sure. Denise will be doing our presentation tonight. I want to mention that this we adopted prior to our council adopting the resolution that will be in front of voters this fall for a bond election or in February. So the projects that are in here are existing projects. The new projects that will be part of that bond, we would love to share those with you and hop on your website. Some of those will be definitely in next year's update. So with that, I will turn it over to Denise.
Hey, thank you, Dree, and thank you, Council, for having us this evening. I am going to share my screen, which is always the most challenging part of my presentation. So it looks like I am sharing, and so let me know if you don't see it. But I'm just going to walk through very briefly just a broad overview of the district's 2021 capital facilities plan and impact fees. And just kind of the basis for capital facilities planning. The district's enrollment has been growing for many years. Obviously, the pandemic has affected the school district's enrollment, like all school districts in our region. So enrollment is down just a bit based upon what was remote learning, but it's starting to come back as students have returned to school. And the district's demographer, in preparing updated enrollment projections, specifically looked at this phenomenon along with birth rates, development that's in the pipeline, to project that the district will continue to grow over the next 6-year planning period. It's not at a rate as high as previous years, but growth is continuing, and that is at all 3 grade levels. And we are starting to see in the most recent enrollment projections how that is looking for the district and those trends going back up. Capital facilities planning, of course, looks at the district's existing inventory. And just so for background, the district has 20 elementary schools and an early childhood center. That includes the 2020 opening of Ruby Bridges Elementary and also new capacity at Canyon Creek Elementary and new capacity at Skyview Middle School. In addition, the district has opened Innovation Lab High School, which is an alternative high school, in addition to its 4 comprehensive high schools. And that will continue to add capacity through the 2022-23 school year. At the same time, the district is starting to try to bring those portable counts down. The new elementary school you'll see has helped to bring that down a bit from where they were before. So that's always an ongoing look in terms of temporary versus permanent capacity. Turning to the school impact fees, just a brief update or background for you all. These are authorized by the Growth Management Act and also as a part of your city's code. For school impact fees, these apply only to new residential dwelling units because residential dwelling units are what impacts the school facilities. The fee itself is based on growth-related capacity needs, and those fees cannot be used to address existing system deficiencies. So anything in the district system that is a result of past growth that hasn't yet been addressed is not a part of the impact fee calculation. And they also importantly can't be used to cover the full costs of new capacity improvements. There needs to be what's referred to as a local share component. That typically is a capital bond or a capital levy. Often it will include some portion of state funding as well. For purposes of the 2021 Capital Facilities Plan update and the school impact fees, the district is carrying forward implementation of the 2018 bond projects. So you'll see these listed here. These are the same projects that you saw last year in the 2020 Capital Facilities Plan. We have some of them are completed, some of them are near completion. all of them have available capacity to serve new growth going forward. So as those projects have been implemented, we always make sure before adopting the plan that we can only leave them in if they do in fact have available capacity for a new home that will be constructed in the period going forward. As Dree mentioned, next year, you'll probably see different projects as the 2022 bond program starts to get underway and the district updates its capital facilities plan accordingly. So again, using those same projects that you saw in 2020, we've updated the impact fees to reflect various updates in the formula itself. We had some updated construction costs based upon actual costs. There were updated student generation rates. That's primarily the reason for why you're seeing a slight increase in that single family fee. We also updated the credits for purposes of taxes that a new homeowner will pay towards a school construction bond that funds these projects. We provide a credit against the calculated fee to make sure that they're not paying twice for the same improvement. And I mention that primarily because that's why you're seeing a slight decrease in the multifamily fee. The average assessed value for multifamily units has increased a bit, so that increases that credit. One final note here is the district has been for years watching closely townhome units and how many students are being generated from those units, particularly as they have more and more bedrooms. We are all expecting that they will soon start to look more like single family homes, but it just hasn't happened yet. They are still generating students similar to traditional multifamily apartments and condos. So that's why you see that reflected within that category, but it is something that the district intends to watch very carefully going forward. I will stop sharing now, and Dree and Dawn and I are here for questions.
So we thought we would take a pause at this point and answer questions about this particular piece and then go on to the next phase, if that's okay with the mayor and the council.
Sounds good. Deputy Mayor Zorns?
Just a quick question. On townhomes, you say they reflect more apartments than they do single family home. Is that just in frequency of use?
That is specific to the number of students that are actually residing in those homes. When the district calculates its fee, it does what's called a student generation rate that measures how many students are actually residing in new homes and multifamily units built within the previous 5-year period. So it gets an average of the new development impacts. Townhomes right now, for whatever reason, the students residing in those townhome units just seem to be more similar to apartments versus single family homes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other cards.
Okay, so I'll ask Deputy City Attorney Sepler to do his part of the presentation at this point. And I will note for the council that the public hearing is on all of these items, and the ordinance that is before you this evening for your consideration and action is also covering all 3 of these items. So with that, Mr. Sepler, take it away.
Thank you, Director Cotterman. So council, now turning to the remainder of what this ordinance would do if adopted. The staff took this time to try to figure out a way of getting our park, school, and fire impact fee chapters to clean up a few areas where there's ambiguity to make them easier for both city staff to administer and also for the public to understand, especially our customers. The key ways we went about doing this are try to clarify how school, park, and fire impact fees will be collected, where there's a change of use or an expansion or redevelopment of an existing use. Currently in our code, that language for school, fire, and park impact fees is not as clear or as helpful as it could be. So we took this opportunity to try to change that. We also clarified the procedure for an independent fee calculation with respect to school impact fees. Right now, our current code language allows for an independent fee calculation from a developer, but doesn't provide much direction as to the procedure for how one should be submitted and reviewed. And in contrast, our park and fire impact fee code language has a better procedure that we brought over to the school, or proposing that it brings over to our school impact fees. The ordinance also fixes or removes a couple outdated references to state law and also some redundant code language that just adds length to the chapter without really adding anything new, making it harder for folks to read through. And finally, it streamlines a complicated structure for calculating school impact fees for subdivisions and PUDs. Currently in our code, there's kind of a 50-50 split, that 50% is due when a subdivision or PUD is finalized, and the other 50% is due with the building permits. This ordinance would just put it all to the building permit stage, simplifying things for everyone involved and making it consistent across the different impact fees that the city assesses. So in summary, these extra code changes are trying to make our code read better and try to make it easier to apply and understand. We're generally keeping the same policy that was there before, with the exception of that 50-50 split for final subdivisions and PUDs. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the extra fixes we're including in this ordinance.
Deputy Mayor Zorns, you have an extra challenging background tonight.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you to staff for doing this, because this is a shift on how we do business. And even though our agenda says that you don't anticipate that it's going to generate an additional workload, I know it's taking a shift in how you do business. So I'd just like to thank staff for doing this.
City Clerk, were there any public comment?
There were not, Mayor Olson, and I'm only seeing two city staff members in the attendee room. So there are no members of the public in the attendee room.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank North Shore School District folks for coming. I will never vote no on a reduction in impact fees. So thank you for the good news, and I'm happy to be in support of this.
All right, no further questions or comments. I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Dewar.
I move the recommended action.
Councilmember Agnew.
I will give the floor to Councilmember McAuliffe.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
And I would second that, and also appreciate the work that's been done for this. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we have a motion by Councilmember Dewar to adopt the proposed fee resolution amendment attachment 2 and adopt the proposed ordinance attachment 3 with fees at the level requested by North Shore School District and other amendments to Title 21 regarding collection of school impact fees and clarifications of code language regarding school, fire, and park impact fees, with the second by Councilmember McAuliffe. Any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewar,
Oh, yes.
and Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone coming and presenting on this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We very much appreciate it.
I should also note this goes into effect January 1st is when the fees and everything else takes effect. So thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks everyone from the school district.
Okay, on to our next public hearing. We have 21-187. So it's a public hearing regarding amendments to Bothell Municipal Code Titles 11, 12, 17, 18, and 20 relating to the procedure of for review of permit applications for development. And I will turn it over to our Development Service Manager, Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Olson, and thank you to the council and everyone here for your time and attention tonight. This is a code amendment that we've been aware of for some time. As you saw in the agenda bill, this is an amendment that will clarify our development procedures and avoid potential conflict with state law. Back in 2020, the City Council enacted a 6-month interim legislation that suspended a section of our code that required development permit applicants to complete site plan review prior to accepting, accepting their building permit and other development permit applications. We did that because we discovered that there may be a conflict with state vesting laws, in that the section of code that we're asking to be amended tonight may have created a barrier to vesting for development projects. And rather than wait for that to become a problem potentially or not, and just to clear up any ambiguities in it, we prepared this amendment to the code, this permanent amendment to the code. You guys you'd approved this interim suspension of that section, and then you renewed that again for another 6 months, and that expires, I believe, December 9th. So we're coming to you tonight with an amendment that will make permanent the changes that we have been doing on suspension for the last year. As you're aware, when we get development applications in, we created the site plan review process as a means for development applicants to go through some of the earlier steps, if you will, in the development process that would give them an idea of what their site plan is going to look like, some of the major elements of that development that need to be established before you get into the nitty-gritty, the details of a building permit or a grading permit, utility work, and all that sort of thing. And we have found that it became cumbersome for both staff and expensive for our applicants if they produced all of those very detailed plans and applications at the same time, and then ended up having to amend those and redo a bunch of things because their site plan work changed what their project ultimately would look like. And so while we think that the sequencing of those permits, as we've been doing, since we adopted site plan review, while we think that sequencing is a good idea, we just didn't want to run afoul of any question of vesting rights. And so this code has been amended in a way that still strongly encourages permit applicants to get their site plans and things organized first, approved and understood before they commit a lot of time and energy to more detailed sets of plans that they have to see when they come in for when they come in for permits with us. Most do that. It is good business practice for them. It certainly helps out our staff in terms of, again, sequencing the series of reviews that we have to do on things. And so we don't anticipate that this will result in a lot of change, but it will ensure that, again, we don't run afoul of any state vesting laws. I should also point out that what we're talking about here is the sequencing of permit applications. Our city code will still require that prior to issuance of those detailed plans, like a building permit or grading permit or utility permit, prior to issuance of those plans, that land use application, that site plan, has to be approved and finalized. So that's an important distinction. And I'll answer any questions if you have them. Thank you for your time.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
So if SEPA is tied into a project here, does that come at the front of before these permits are applied for, or does that come after?
It does come during the site plan review phase, the early phase of all kind of the development review. So it does come early on. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mhm.
Let me check for visitor comment or any public comments.
Yeah, no public comment, no sign ups.
Okay. Councilmember Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for bringing this to our attention. I am all in favor of not running afoul of state laws. And thank you for your work. And with that, I'll move the recommended action.
Councilmember Agnew.
I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you. So we have Councilmember Dewar that makes a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance in attachment 1 as recommended, with the second by Councilmember Agnew. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, City Clerk.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McAuliffe,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewar,
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, on to AB 21-188. So a consideration of joining the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. And we have our Interim Assistant City Manager, Becky Range.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight, Mayor, council members. I have a short item, but it's a very important item. This item tonight, we'd like to ask for you to authorize the interim city manager to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. If approved, the city of Bothell will join efforts with our neighboring cities, Shoreline, Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and Woodinville, to address homelessness. We know that homelessness and keeping the community healthy and safe is a big priority for you and a big priority for our community. And knowing that homelessness is such a regional issue, we are very excited about joining this regional coalition. We hope that you believe that that will be valuable for us as well. If approved, what we would do is add this coalition to your list of committees. And in January, you would then appoint a council member and one alternate to serve on the coalition. The coalition was actually led and kind of started and refined by Shoreline. It's made up of these member cities who have all already appointed council members to be on the coalition. And there are also some community groups that are part of the coalition. So at this time, I'd like to answer any questions you might have. There's more details in your packet about the coalition, but we're very excited to join. Any questions at this time?
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Can I make a comment? I think when we had our, we were talking about looking for lobbying in DC, we were, I had suggested that we might work with some other cities on creating a restorative court and mental health facilities here that serve the cities at the north end of Lake Washington. And I look at this as an opportunity for all those cities that we're talking about that we can work jointly with, another avenue to create conversation and understand the need together. So I fully support this.
Deputy Mayor Zorn, or sorry, Councilmember Dewar.
Is there anyone in front of me? I can't see. Okay. I'd like to thank Becky for your work on this. I think we all can agree that it's a very important coalition and a very important cause. And so I would like to make a motion to move the recommended action.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
And I'd like to second that. And I just want to say how excited I am to have this be part of our city and helping our community.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dewar to authorize the interim city manager to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the North King County Coalition on Homelessness and plan to appoint a council member and one alternate to serve as representative in early January, with the second by Councilmember McAuliffe. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, City Clerk?
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil.
Yes.
Mayor Olson.
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr.
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us down to council conversations. Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to know how best we could get a progress report on our pop-up shops. I'm a little concerned. I go down there on a regular basis just to kind of see how they're doing, and I would like to have a little report on their progress, just so that we can talk about it out in the open and people will learn more about what's going on down there. As I walk around Bothell and talk to her people, they say, what is this pop-up shop? What is that little building down there? And so I'd like to know, how are we really promoting them and how do they feel? I think it's something that we as a community care a lot about, and I think we should put our focus on them and kind of see how we can support them best.
That's a great topic, and I think Deputy Mayor Zorns is going to speak to this a little bit also, just on our conversations with the city manager earlier this week. We brought up this question, and Jeannie Ash will be coming to council and providing some of that information to us. So great job, Rosemary. You're ahead of the curve on that. So Deputy Mayor Zorns.
I just want to second that concern, because every time I go by, it's very quiet. And I know our staff is concerned about it succeeding. We all want it to succeed. And so, I think if we can have that conversation with Jeannie Ash, and I'm sure they're exploring how we could bring in more, short of neon arrows pointing at it, how can we get some attention for it? And, maybe at some point is the discussion, do we want to expand that and add a couple more sheds so it just doesn't look so, that corner looks occupied, that there's action going on. I don't know. There's a lot of things for us to talk about, but I share that same concern.
Everyone just wants to get to executive session, huh? Councilmember McAuliffe.
I just want to know how Deputy Mayor Zorns brought up this new background that I love. Every time you speak, I go, wow.
That's from a local artist, Janelle Lowen. She's in Suga, and if you would like, I will share them. She is happy to share them. So yeah, she also did the crow that I was sporting the other week as well. But yeah, all her artwork is hers.
I love it. Please share.
Yeah. Can I just mention a hero? Because I have to have a hero this week. And those are the people who are taking time in this bitter cold to decorate their front porches. I just love seeing all the light. one of my neighbors is one of our top stellar light people. And I see that there's a few places that are, I'm going to have to get in my car, not my bike. Sorry, Mason. I'm going to have to get in my car and go around and appreciate them as well. But thank you for our people who are not Grinches this time of season and making it festive.
Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to the young men that are behind me. They come from 8 different programs, came together this weekend, went down to Tukwila, played 4 lacrosse games, went 4-0, and brought the championship festival back to North Shore. And if you look at their uniforms, those are 20-year-old North Shore lacrosse uniforms that they wore 20 years ago here locally. So super cool for those boys to go down there. You can see the helmets out front. We've got Bothell, Woodinville, Inglemoor, and North Creek. So it's just an amazing opportunity to be down there with them and see the brotherhood and the bonds that they build. So just like to celebrate them and honor them for all their hard work and dedication this last weekend.
Pretty awesome. All right, if everyone just wants to get to executive session and closed session, we can do that. All right, so we have coming up, we have executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, parent 1, parent G, to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, and it's anticipated to last 30 minutes with no action following. And then we'll move to a closed session for labor negotiation pursuant to RCW 42.30.140, parent 4, parent A, and it's anticipated to last 30 minutes with no action following. So see everyone over at the other meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Council has exited executive session and will move into closed session and adjourn from there with no action.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.